been another week where there's been a lot of developments in the Middle East, where there's been a lot of scrutiny about exactly what is going on in the Middle East. And I think domestically, a lot of questions raised as to what exactly Ireland might do on a tangible level to try and end some of the awful things that are happening in the Middle East. There was a very long and somewhat tortuous, in fact, reading Richard today, we were talking about how the debate, which ostensibly ended yesterday in the Dáil, still kind of bled over to this morning in the Dáil. So what exactly does Ireland have to do with Israel raising money for its war?
Well, this is the story of the week in the Dáil, I think, Gavin, has been everybody almost unanimously looking to see what pressure Ireland can put on Israel to stop its actions in Gaza in terms of the enforced famine that is almost in effect now in Gaza, and to relinquish its vice grip in terms of the military action it is conducting across Gaza. So the government, the cabinet, has approved the drafting of the Occupied Territories Bill, which will be reworked in some way, shape or form. Okay. The current thought is that it'll cover goods, perhaps not services, which has been a key demand for a lot of campaigners.
Services, the lion's share of it. It's like 5/6 of the entire trade.
It would be.
Services.
And I mean, Simon Harris, in fairness, who brought this to cabinet, said, look, we don't do a lot of trade in goods with the occupied territories, i.e. illegal Israeli settlements on Palestinian land. But it's a start. And we think now we're at a point where other countries might follow suit. So this actually is now like a positive gesture rather than something they were afraid of. Because remember, only a few short months ago, we were saying
about them getting the skittish feeling because the Americans would marginalise us for pursuing this. And now they've feel emboldened to go ahead and do it anyway.
And the government was basically told by the US Embassy, don't go ahead with that. Don't go ahead with this. This is something which will not work in terms of anti-boycott measures for the US. So that is one thing that's happened. The biggest thing in terms of protest has been around the so-called war bonds. So we've talked about bonds in the podcast before when we were talking about Donald Trump. So basically,
bonds are how countries raise money.
Yeah. So the Israeli government, all governments in the world effectively can sell their debt to raise cash. So, you know, the Israeli government has been selling bonds throughout the process and before the intervention in Gaza. But it has been marketing these to people, to companies, to parties around the world saying, for example, reading the website where they do this, support Israel through Israel bonds. Israeli President Isaac Herzog is rallying for unwavering support for the Jewish state and emphasizes the crucial role, I should say, of Israel bonds during this time of conflict and war. So effectively, the Israeli state is trying to sell these as you're supporting our efforts in Gaza by buying these bonds. Now, Ireland has a role in this, and it has been misstated in some quarters. So we're going to try and clarify that as clean as possible.
Please do,
and it isn't very easy.
I haven't been following this very, very rigorously for the last couple of days, and there's a fair chance that even I've misread some of what is. So in as much as we can, as concisely as we can, what exactly does Ireland have to do with the sale of Israeli bonds?
The Central Bank of Ireland, which of course is situated on the Quays there in Dublin City, it is effectively the competent authority with regards to issuing the approval for a prospectus. Now, that's already a super jargony, right? But effectively, it is a regulatory body which says that the bonds that Israel is selling, the security is there, everything in terms of financially is okay. It has no role in terms of being a shopkeeper for selling Israeli bonds, which is something you see often in terms of Ireland is selling Israeli bonds. They're not. That's not how this works. And Sinn Féin, who put forward the bill, says, we're not suggesting they are. We're not suggesting that they're in some way overseeing the bonds or finding buyers for them. They effectively rubber stamp that this is a thing. This is a verified financial product.
So when Israel is looking to try and raise money by selling its debt across Europe, it goes to the Irish Central Bank to ask for approval.
Well,
it's
not as if this is an ongoing thing. This isn't something where every time they sell a bond, they go to the central bank and the governor of the central bank says, "Okay, here you go."
But Dublin, once upon a time, rubber stamped a prospectus.
And this actually is one of the interesting parts of this. This has only happened since 2021. It used to be the UK which regulated or was the approving body basically for the sale of Israeli bonds in the European Union. Now that's Ireland's job. So when the UK left after Brexit, Israel chose Ireland as the location to do that, which is interesting. And there's been no clarity from Israel as to why they actually did choose Ireland, a state which we have, somewhat of a checkered diplomatic past with. But that is how it has happened. Now, the central bank on their own page, their own website, they know there's a lot of focus on this, and there has been for a number of months in terms of being a facilitator, and I think that is a fair word which is used. The government has taken issue with that in terms of facilitating the sale of Israeli bonds, allowing the Israeli government to raise money which it can spend in terms of something which the Irish government has described as genocide in Gaza. The central bank says it can only refuse the approval of prospectus, jargon, sorry again, where the central bank has a legal basis to do so, other than an insufficient prospectus disclosures. An example of a legal basis for refusing to do this would be the existence of EU financial sanctions. Obviously, they're not going to happen.
Yeah.
And then the second one is, and this is what Sinn Féin has been hating, is national restrictive measures to the same effect. So Sinn Féin and all of the other parties in the Dáil which have been supporting the ban on Israeli war bonds say all Ireland has to do, all the government has to do, and all the Dáil has to do is pass this legislation to say to the central bank, stop doing that.
And there was a vote in the Dáil, and the government effectively blocked that bill.
They effectively blocked that bill. They said we don't have the legal standing to do this. And the central bank says effectively, in all fairness, we have to do it. We are, as the chosen body by Israel, we have no role in actually intervening or doing anything else.
But then it strikes me then, because
it's so strange that we are the chosen body, given the fact that they don't even have an ambassador in Ireland anymore.
It isn't a very good question, a very open one, because you would think that there have been some other member states in the EU, particularly, we were discussing last week how foreign ministers had now decided that they wanted to review the EU's association agreement with Israel, and there are 10 member states that are on record as saying they even don't want to do that, even in spite of the present humanitarian, like the man-made famine that is in the process of unfolding, in the course of unfolding in Gaza. So there are at least other European member states who ostensibly would be much friendlier to Israel and much more supportive of it, and would probably have no moral or ethical qualms about approving or issuing or sanctioning a prospectus so that Israel can borrow. So why it has come to us, I mean, it strikes me as one of those things that perhaps in the post-Brexit rush that Ireland almost kind of solicited a bit of extra business, and that there might have been some small commission earned on the way. I only know if there's commissions involved for approving a prospectus. It seems like a very routine, mundane regulatory thing, but we are where we are.
The thing about it is, and this is where the government has a job to do in terms of convincing the public that it's doing the right thing here in terms of rejecting this bill. And obviously two regional independent TDs voted against the government.
So Barry Heenan and Gillian Toole, who are some of the outside supporters who were famously implicated in the speaking rights dispute, voted against the government for the first time. They
weren't convinced that by the government's argument that, look, we're constrained by the law here. Now, the argument that the government has to make to the public here, and I don't know if it's doing it convincingly yet, is that you hear Micheál Martin, you hear Simon Harris say we have to use every lever at our disposal to put pressure on Israel to stop doing what it's doing in Gaza. And it spells out, look, we're going to look at the Occupied Territories Bill, we're going to look at trade at an EU level. By saying that this is a very technical law here at an EU level, which we don't really want to get involved in terms of messing around with. This isn't.
Are you pulling every lever or not?
Yeah, exactly. Either you are or you aren't, and we don't hear any repercussions for us in terms of the government. The government has made the case that there'll be repercussions for us in Ireland, and I'm not sure that the public would even care if there were major repercussions, because international law has been broken left, right and centre these days. It's 10 a penny, and doing something which sets pressure abroad might be something which would be popular domestically, even if it's something which might have some sort of backlash on the Irish government.
There is a devil's advocate argument to make as an observation, though, which is that because Israel, as I understand it, has not been issuing separate war bonds to its everyday debt, the same bond that is paying for Israel's campaign in Gaza might well be the same bond that's also just paying for Israeli healthcare and policing and everything else. And there might be an argument that you are effectively defunding the Israeli state, not just its campaign in Gaza, by cutting off its access to borrowing on international markets. But the counterpoint is that there are almost certainly plenty of other European homes that we would have
it's not the Irish government's problem. I don't think that the Israeli government would say that this should be something for the Irish government to be particularly concerned about. Again,
it's the recycling of some of the arguments that there have been for or against ceasefires in the last 18 months, that if Israel chose not to exercise military powers for a period, then Israel would be ostensibly, in some arguments, laying itself open to hostility from Hamas or any other international actor. So that is one perception of it. You mentioned international law and how it's been broken left, right and centre. Sorry, Zara, yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, can I just ask, just going back to the Occupied Territories Bill for a second, though, why now, or why is there a movement now when, we talked about, I remember this time last year, I think we were speculating on whether or not it would be dealt with before the summer recess, then we were wondering would it be dealt with before the election. Why now? Is it because the situation has become so dire that the decision's been moved along now? Why now?
I think that is the case, Aaron. I think it's actually what we've talked about in the last couple of weeks as well, is that there now has been that shift in tone and position from even European countries. Even Friedrich Merz, the German Chancellor, Germany has been the strongest, most steadfast supporter of the Israeli government over the last number of months with regards to Gaza, now saying that it's completely unacceptable what Israel is doing in Gaza, that it's going beyond all sorts of proportionality in terms of targeting civilians, in terms of enforcing hunger in Gaza, even though the Israeli government says that there is no starvation in Gaza. So I think there was enough of a groundswell there that they had a feeling, particularly now after that Netherlands motion to say, let's review that trade agreement with Israel, that they felt, okay, maybe we aren't going to have any backlash here. And again, it is, I mean, like the Dáil has been rife with debate about how important is it that a small country like Ireland takes a step on this, and how much of an impact it has, and whether or not we're leaving ourselves open for repercussions. The calculation has been made now in government buildings that if there is a backlash, it's something worth taking from a humanitarian point of view. I
thought it was very telling, actually, that Simon Harris's social media profiles this week were now almost acting up that Ireland is now the first European country, even if the law hasn't been drafted or passed yet, it is the first European country to take a decision at governmental level that this is a thing that they are going to do. So they're clearly now wedded to the principle of it. It's just a matter of getting it done.
Can we talk about the issue at a European level that arose this morning through reporting in the Journal that Independent Ireland MEP Kieran Mullooly used artificial intelligence to write an open letter about Gaza addressed to Ursula von der Leyen, using AI, and it quoted Swedish house mafia, and it included as well an emotional story from a fake girl, as in a girl who does not exist in Gaza. A lot of people are shocked at this. A lot of people are like, well, why did you have to create a fake girl using ChatGPT or whatever other generative AI you use to do this when there are hundreds of thousands of children whose emotional stories are real?
They're real stories that don't need to be concocted for the sake of storytelling. But there was it is not yet clear at this point whether Kieran Mullooly acknowledges that or whether he was aware that in publishing the letter that it was citing lyrics from Swedish house mafia. Because he was asking Ursula von der Leyen, do you have anything to say to fictional Ghazi who lives in the Gaza Strip? I mean, even a more derivative name, you sort of find it hard to find. But have you anything to say to her other than, don't you worry, child, see heaven's got a plan for you? Which, I mean, there's more evocative ways of making the point, I think, irrespective of whatever sentence.
So I'm actually I'm discovering
give us your real time cringy hot take
thing. This is my live reaction.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, first of all, I just wanted to check and see how we knew it was AI, but I believe he said it himself.
He has acknowledged. His spokesperson for Kieran Mullooly and Kieran Mullooly himself have acknowledged that parts of the letter were used or generated using AI. Yeah.
I don't get that. I don't understand. No, this is not good.
It's not good. And
that's
also,
my live reaction.
As part of the open letter, he requests a gradual implementation of aid. It's a famine.
Yeah.
A gradual stepping up of aid is beneath even what the United States of America is calling for example. Yeah. I mean, it's very, very poor. MEPs are incredibly well paid. They have a staff of multiple assistants to help them with these things. And I mean, at a time when we're looking for leadership and looking for even competence, I think, from politicians across the board, value for money is something which Independent Ireland as a party talks about an awful lot, and rightly so.
Yeah.
What exactly are we getting from our elected representatives if they're using generative AI to make fairly hammy letters to Ursula von der Leyen? That's just my take on it.
I think hammy is the word.